creation was simply an act of love on God's part. And we use the parent-child analogy, where in spite of bringing up children can be frustrating at times, but it's still an act of love. It is done as an expression of a love between a husband and a wife. And that is the reason for God, started initiating the creation. So we talked some about that. We talked about the creation act itself, how it was different than anything that we could create. We might create a kitchen cabinet. We might create a song. We might create a lot of things, but none of these things are created in the same way that God created the universe. What's the difference? We talked about that. Yeah, started from nothing. This creatio ex nihilo is the Latin expression for from nothing. And that's the way that God made the world. In the beginning, there was God and only God, and He spoke the worlds into existence. Then we talked some about the Spirit of God, that it was present right there in the beginning, that the creation itself was a collaborative effort among the Trinity, and each of them were involved, that God is given credit for creating it through the Son, Jesus Christ, by the power of the Holy Spirit, and that's the way the creation is explained. We talked about the chaotic state of the initial creation, how it was that darkness was moving over the face of the deep, the waters seemed to be in chaos, and the Spirit of God was present, moving across the waters. And we said that this was not a situation that God would like to leave it like that. We said this was a situation that God found disorderly and chaotic, and and as a result, God set about to bring order to it. And we talked about that. We talked about the days of creation. We're going to go through each of them today, and and notice the pattern. The pattern starts like this. First of all, there's divine speech. There is God saying, "Let there be," whatever it is He wants to create. And then this work of creation will be either an act of forming or an act of filling. First of all, God will form a space or an environment that is suitable for life, and then in a later act, He will fill that space with life itself. That sometimes he blessed His creation. Sometimes He named portions of His creation. Like in the first day of creation, He called the light day, and He called the darkness night. And often He named portions of His creation. Also, sometimes He blessed His creation. He also made an evaluation of the creation at the end of each day. He looked at it, and the typical response was He saw that it was good. And then the day was numbered. So we'll go through the rest of the days of creation. Oh yes, we also covered the first day of creation. What happens on the first day? Okay, light. And God is said to have separated light from darkness. He called the light day and the darkness night. And we said that this was logical because all life begins with light. Without light, there can't be life, and so this was a good beginning place. Let's move ahead in the text to the second day of creation. I'd like a volunteer reader for verses 6 through 8. Okay, now He calls it a dome in the midst of the waters, or an expanse. And this is God doing a work of separation. The creation of the sky and the firmament, and the separation of the liquid water down on the land and the water vapor in the sky. And so it was an acknowledgement there was not, even though it's not visible, it doesn't feel wet to us that there's water even in the sky. And there's another, I told you I would point this out to you as we go along. Genesis is full of very subtle anti-pagan messages. Because keep in mind, at the time of the writing of the Pentateuch, the Israelites were going up against nations all around them who worship pagan deities of various kinds, and Genesis is full of all kinds of messages that this is not correct. And it's saying that the God who created the heavens and the earth had complete dominion, complete domination over, and nothing was created without God's hand, and there was no other creator. All right, let's move along to the third day of creation. I'd like to get a volunteer reader for 9 through 13.
And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let the dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, trees on the land with their fruit with seed in it, according to its various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the third day.
Okay, third day of creation was it an act of separation or an act of filling? Okay, what about at the beginning of the day here? Okay, there's separation involved. He separates the water from the dry land and then begins to fill it with vegetation. Here is the recognition that God did not appreciate the chaotic state of the initial creation. There's a recognition that both dry land and water are vital. They're essential for the creation, but each has to stay in their proper boundaries. And if either leaves their boundaries, then chaos results. Anybody who's ever owned a home with a plumbing problem realizes this is the case, right? Okay, place for water and a place for dry, and they should all stay in their place. Some of the greatest disasters we've ever had on the earth were hurricanes, where the water got out of its rightful boundaries, and all kinds of suffering resulted. Now, here's something else that happens on the third day that hasn't happened before, and what's that? Okay, there's vegetation. Yeah. God made provision for the vegetation to perpetuate itself, to keep living, to sustain its life. So God didn't just make a creation, set it in motion, and walk away, but He made provisions for it to continue and be sustained. That's a very important part of the third day. The third day, at first, was a day of separation, getting the water separated from the dry land, but at the end it was filling, because God had created the dry land and He filled it with vegetation. So a day of both forming and filling. Okay, let's move on to the fourth day. I'd like a volunteer reader for verses 14 through 19.
God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs, for seasons, for days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth." And it was so. And God made the two great lights. The greater lights rule the day, and the lesser lights rule the night and the stars. And God set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the fourth day.
All right, the fourth day involved the creation of the luminaries that we're familiar with, the sun, the moon, the stars, no doubt the planets. There's something else that we get from these beings, these sources of light. What do we get from them?
Life from the sun.
Yeah, life from the sun. Somebody else, I think. Pardon? Yeah, exactly. when those were put in place, then humans had a means of keeping track of time. Days, months, years, they're all based on the movement of these stars and planets and so on and so forth. So that became a feature for humans. Now, here's another anti-pagan insertion. It looks like God goes out of his way to describe the two great lights, the greater light that rules the day, the lesser light to rule the night. But he doesn't call them the sun and the moon. Okay? And the reason that he doesn't is because the pagan nations around Israel who received the Genesis message, they worship the sun and the moon. And this is God's way of saying they are just objects, they are not beings. And they're not to be worshipped. And so another subtle anti-pagan message. Somebody run over to Deuteronomy chapter 4, read verses 19 through 20. See what it's got to say there.
When you see the sun or the moon or stars, don't be tempted to bow down and worship them. The Lord put them there for all the other nations to worship. But you are the Lord's people, because he led you through the fiery trials and rescued you from Egypt. Okay.
Here, God is trying to get the Israelites to realize you are distinct from the people who bow down to these objects in the sky. That they are not living beings. They do not have power in and of themselves. The only power they have is what God gave them. Though these objects, these luminaries, are not deities, the heavens actually attest to their greatness. I want us to read these passages I've got outlined here. Somebody go to the 19th Psalm, read the first 6 verses. Somebody else be ready with Romans chapter 1, 18 through 23. All right.
The heavens declare the glory of God, and the skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where the voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world. In the heavens he has pitched a tent for the sun, which is like a bridegroom coming forth from his pavilion, like a champion rejoicing to run his course. It rises at one end of the heavens, makes a circuit to the other. Nothing is hidden from its heat.
Okay. So in the Psalms, it gets explained that these creations of God, they are shouting. They don't have words. They don't have a language, but yet they're making a testament every time that they appear. And it's the psalmist's way of saying, if you can't decide if there's a God or not, go outdoors and look up. And you will come to that conclusion. Romans chapter 1. Who has that for us? Okay, Truett.
The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godliness and the wickedness of people who suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools, and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being, and birds, and animals, and reptiles.
Okay, this is Paul in the letter to the Romans describing where the Gentiles had gotten to. That they had rejected the clear evidence of God in the creation and had begun to worship other things other than the Creator. And it led them into all kinds of difficulty, and it led them to all kinds of futility. All right, let's move along to the 5th day. I'd like somebody to read verses 20 through 23.
And God said, let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly over the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living thing with which the water teems, and that moved about in it, according to their kind
Okay, fifth day, was it forming or filling? Yeah, it's filling. In the third day, God had separated the dry land from the water. He created this space. And then on the fifth day, the seas and oceans are filled with all kinds of aquatic animals, and the skies get filled with birds. Like the vegetation that we noticed on the third day, the creation of day 5 was the ability to reproduce. All these animals were given the ability to reproduce, that they can do this job of filling up the sky, filling up the waters in the oceans, and sustaining life. Again, God's not interested in just creating, but He's also interested in sustaining. And in fact, Paul says in Acts that in Him we live and move and have our very being. So He sustains life, not just creates it. Okay? You might be puzzled a little bit by verse 21, the great sea monsters. You will find this in Scripture from time to time. The name Leviathan, I don't know whether you've encountered that, but it was later attached to the sea monsters. They were kind of a legend. It's kind of like the Loch Ness monster, and people were kind of naturally afraid of water because well, a lot of people who fished and did other things would go off into the water somewhere, into the Mediterranean Sea, and not come back. And the boats weren't all that great and that stable, and so there was kind of a dread or a fear attached to water. And God addresses the idea that there were sea monsters, and that was kind of a legend, and God accommodates them by talking about them. So the first time it has happened in creation is God speaks to the creation, and He blesses these creatures as they begin to fill up the waters in the sky. So first time He has ever spoken to the creation. He's always kind of spoken out into the ether, I guess you would say, let there be whatever He wanted to create. But now He's speaking to the creation itself as it forms and becomes more mature. Okay, sixth day is a busy day, really. Verses 24 through 31.
God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock and creeping things, and beasts of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in His own image. In the image of God He created him. Male and female He created them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have food, you shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. And God saw everything that He had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day.
Sixth day is day of forming or filling? Yeah, definitely filling. He fills the land with animals, and then He also creates His ultimate creation, which was a human being. Pay particular attention to verse 26, where it says that God said, "Let us make mankind in our image and after our likeness." There's a plural there, right? Not just God by Himself. Who are these people that God is collaborating with here? Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay? Would there be others? Yeah, okay, all right. We'll talk about that in a minute. Some people have said it was just self-deliberation, that God just, I've talked to myself a little bit when I'm doing things, and I will say, let's see here. Now, right? And so some say that God's just kind of musing to himself here, but I think the more likely suggestion is what Ed said, that the Trinity is involved. The Trinity has been involved in the creation all along, so it just makes sense that before the creation of humans that the God the Father would collaborate. But there is also a group that I would guess I would call the Divine Council. You read about it in various places. The most obvious place you can go to is the first chapter of Job, chapter 1, verse 6. Where it says there was this meeting where all the heavenly beings came together, and Satan was there, and he talked about Job, and the story went from there. But they were described as heavenly beings, so I think that would be angels, agents of God. Everyone who is on God's side, I guess you would say. And we tend not to think of that, but I think there's a good possibility that those angels were present on this occasion as well. Now, in verse 26, God says, "Let us make humankind in our image." We need to air that out a little bit, find out what that means. What does it mean to be made in the image of God and according to his likeness?
God is a spirit, so that means the creation that he possessed in man was a spirit.
Okay, we're spiritual beings, like God. Okay, very good. I would say at the beginning that when God says, "Let us make him in our likeness," we are like God in a lot of ways, but we are not God. Okay, so let's be clear about that. A dog is like a wolf, but a dog is not a wolf. Okay, so similarities, but not exact and equal in status. Okay, as Curtis has pointed out, we're spiritual beings, just like God. What else makes us in the image of God? Okay, yeah, we're creative. We have thought processes that are far superior to anything else that has been made in all the days of creation that we've looked at. Okay, we're immortal. Okay, we live on, not like the animals of the field or anything like that. We live on after our bodies give up. Okay, what else? Okay, Dolores. We look like him? Okay. Okay, all right. We have bodies, and Scripture from time to time talks about the face of God and the back of God and the hand of God. And I think God can show up in the form of a body anytime that he chooses to do so, but inherently he is a spiritual being. And these features that are kind of like human features, I think he's given it to us to kind of accommodate to help us relate to God a little bit more. Okay? Yes.
I would add to what you're saying is if we can have that relation, just like we want to be able to relate to our parents, we can look at the similar things. I look like my dad or I look like my mom. So when he gives that, he gives us the imagination that we can look, as the Lord said, like our Father.
Yeah, and he urges us to do that. Yeah. Okay. All right. How else are we made in the image of God? Okay.
Talks about
Whitney.
Dominion over the creatures.
Yes. Okay. Think about it. We are not the biggest creature that God made. We are not the strongest creature that God made. And yet we exert our power over them. We are capable of making them extinct if we so choose to do. And we have done that. Okay? So the dominion aspect is sure there. All right? Yes, Truett.
think also our human nature, our biggest need is for love, for a sense of being, a sense of purpose.
Yes.
And I think that's reflective of him as well. Would go back to why we were created in the first place, as far as to love God.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. Good. All right. Anybody else have a thought? What it means to be made in the image of God? Made some more notes. Let's see if we covered everything. Superior intelligence, for sure. Dominant over creation. We've already mentioned that. Reasoning. We can figure out how to make tools. We can figure out how to get into things that animals can't figure out. We have emotions. Okay? And I don't know that any other creature, maybe some of the more highly evolved ones like dogs or something like that would have emotions, but for the most part, that's a human feature. And we also have a conscience. And animals typically don't. They don't. All right?
I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
In 127, it talks about he created the male and female, but then Eve doesn't actually show up until chapter 2, verse 21. I wondered about the disconnect. I've always wondered about it. Any thoughts?
A couple things. I think this is kind of an overview type thing, and when we get into the second chapter, the story of creation is going to get kind of repeated again. And so I think the first pass through is more of an overview. The second possibility, and I taught as we had the introduction to the book of Genesis that it was written by Moses. It was all one unified document. There are other scholars who believe that there were several sources that were kind of weaved and knit together, and as a result, you get these kind of discontinuities or whatever. So, whichever one of those you choose. All right. God is said to have blessed the work of the sixth day. Again, like he did with the vegetation, he gives them the ability to reproduce, and so they can sustain the created order, not just a one-time creation, but an entity that can keep going. Now, God charged the human with filling, subduing the earth. So, on the earth, humans are the boss. And we've seen this in so many ways. Here's something interesting. The subduing of the earth at this point did not include the consumption of animals. That came after the flood. The first human was a vegetarian, and the other animals were as well. Okay. Because it's specified what their food is to be. At the end of this sixth day, God's assessment of the creation was not just that it was good, but it was very good. Very good. So he's very, very pleased with the creation and how it has come together at this point, which brings up a question we need to talk over. In light of God's pleasure, his satisfaction with the creation, what should our attitude be toward the creation? And try not to make this political, but... yeah, all right. You want to explain what a steward is?
We need to care for the planet and vegetation, whatever you want to call it, but we need to take care of it.
Yeah. It really doesn't speak well of our love for God if we take something that he loves a great deal and trash it and make it unfit for future generations. So that as if we're the only important ones here on this planet and what comes after us is not important. Okay. All right?
Great responsibility to give.
Yes, it is. It is huge. And I think we don't take it seriously enough. We're not connected with the creation as well as we should be. Now, yeah, as we used to be. Now, I am privileged to have grown up on a farm where this connection is very, very obvious, where your whole living depends on God having good soil, sending sunlight and warmth, as well as rain, as well as change of seasons and all the things that make for crops. And you just think about this continuously. There's hardly an hour that goes by when you don't think about the weather. What do we need? Is it too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry? And you were just extremely connected to all that. You put seeds in the ground, you watched them grow, you didn't understand the whole process, but you knew God had set all this in motion, and you're very, very connected to it. Now, most of our jobs don't connect us as well. And yes, Betty.
Please go back to where animals are aware of our reactions. We had a little Japanese chin about this big.
Okay.
And when my sugar was too high, I fell out of the bed. Of course, I knew better, but anyhow. But I fell on the floor, and he came running to me, and you should have seen his little face was just so screwed up. And he was so concerned, but he didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Yes.
But that just shows.
You said that, Mom. Dogs are higher intelligence. They can feel and have emotions. One thing I was going to say, the Romans 8 talks about creation groans for the revealing of the sons of men.
Yes.
You know, I guess when Jesus comes back and everything is revealed, then obviously the new heaven, the new earth, creation's groaning for that as we speak.
Yes. Yes. And I think it's a reflection of the fall and all the things that happened to the creation during the fall, which we'll get into next week, maybe the week following. And the creation itself is not pleased with the way things are. It's waiting for something better, as are we. Somebody read Psalms 8, 3 through 8. All right?
I often think of the heavens your hands have made, and the moon and the stars you put in place. Then I ask, why do you care about us humans? Why are you concerned for us weaklings? You made us a little lower than yourself, and you have crowned us with glory and honor. You let us rule everything your hands have made, and you put all of it under our power. The sheep and the cattle and every wild animal, the birds in the sky and the fish in the sea and all the ocean creatures. Our Lord and ruler, your name is wonderful everywhere on earth.
Okay? So the Psalm says, man's really in charge of this. He's the custodian. And as a result of us wanting to please our Creator, who was overjoyed with the creation, saw that it was very good, then we have a responsibility to care for it and let God know that we appreciate His creation. Okay. All right, let's move on to the seventh day, chapter 2, verses 1 through 3.
Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. On the seventh day God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done.
All right, God is spoken of as resting. Why did he rest? Was he worn out?
It's tired like we do.
You think he was worn out from all the creative work? The idea behind the resting is that not that he was fatigued, but that he was completed with it. It was complete, and so he had a sense of completeness about it. The heavens and the earth were finished, and there was no more work that needed to be done. Yes, Linda.
Could it also be that he was setting an example that we do need a day of rest?
You're about half a step ahead of me there. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Okay? For the third time in the creation story, starting on the fifth day, the sixth day, now on the seventh day, God blessed something. This time it wasn't a physical creation that he has made, but it was a particular day, and it was actually an institution that he blessed. Somebody read Exodus chapter 20, 8 through 11. You know about the Sabbath day and how the Jews observed it, and this passage tells us why they observed it.
Remember this. Go ahead.
Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in the 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy.
All right. This is a foreshadowing of the fourth commandment that would be given to the Israelites at Mount Sinai, and telling them that you follow your work pattern just like God did. 6 days and then a day of rest. For the Israelites, what was the purpose of that day for them? We know that we know God just quit creating on the seventh day because he completed his creation. But what does it mean for them? I think something different than it meant for God. Yeah, exactly. The Jews were very, very ambitious, hard-working people, and they, without the fourth commandment, they would work all the time, and it wouldn't be really good for them. Wouldn't be good for their families. Wouldn't be good for their animals. Wouldn't be good for anything. We need that break. We need that rest, and this was a way of institutionalizing it and making it a part of their daily lives.
Also, too, the worship aspect of it.
Yes.
Worship God
Yes.
by keeping the Sabbath.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Pardon? Discipline. Okay. Meaning.
Well, as you said, with the children of Israel, if they would work
Yeah.
consistently.
Yes.
But if they had some discipline to stop working,
Yes.
then they have to realize there's a space and time for work, and there's a space and time to not work. So
Yes.
they have to have that discipline, or they would just keep doing like you said.
Yeah. They need some structure. Yes. Okay. Good. Carol.
Work is sort of a distraction from God in a way because we're busy. So maybe if we didn't have to work or we were told not to, we would have a day where we could spend a little more time with God.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of the festivals and everything were centered around Sabbaths and those kinds of things. So good. All right. I've pointed this out as we go through the days of creation, but I'll point it out again. There was an organized strategy here on the part of the Creator that consisted, first of all, preparing an environment, making it suitable for life, and then filling it up with life. The first day, God formed light, and we pointed out that this was before the sun and the stars, and so the source was not from those. The source was from God himself. And then on the fourth day, he put lights up into the heavens. On the second day, he separated the water under the sky, and on the fifth day, he stocked it with the aquatic animals. Second day, he separated out the water above the sky and the winged creatures, birds and creatures like that. On the third day, he separated the dry ground out and prepared it as a suitable place for animals. And on the sixth day, land animals and humans were created to fill it. On the third day, he created vegetation, and those became on the sixth day the green plants for food for animals and man. Okay, so that's the strategy. You can see there's organization here. There's thought put into it, and I'd use this as my last slide. It is clear that each stage of the creation was progressing towards the introduction of humans. That was the goal. That was the end game for God. So you can see he puts in place all the things that are necessary for life: light, dry land, vegetation, and the birds and aquatic animals, land animals, and then finally humans after all of those things are in place. Okay, that's all I wanted to say this morning about the days of creation. Arnie.
One of the questions I think sometimes that we're asked today by our friends and neighbors in relative to Genesis chapter 1 and 2 is that do we believe in, that God created the heavens and the earth in 7 days?
Mm-hmm.
And what should our response be, do you think?
Okay. We are going to talk some about that next week or the week following, but I believe that the Earth is older than the 6,000 years that people who calculate using Scripture timelines and that kind of thing. I believe that it's much older than 6,000 years. I think this may be the best way of presenting it to us so that we can understand it.
And how do you define day?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've always looked
Yep.
at. How do you define day?
Yeah.
Now defining it 24 hours.
The Hebrew word for day in this context is kind of vague, and it could mean age.
What does it mean by, what does it mean by morning and evening?
Yeah.
Does that mean millions of years?
I don't know.
We have to be careful with it.
Yeah.
The text is pretty specific.
Yeah. Austin?
It's also the fact, like, if you're defining day, like, he talks about days before there's a sun and a moon, and so what does a day look like
Yeah.
before you have the sun and the moon?
Sure.
Which is kind of how we define
Sure.
times 24 hours.
Yeah.
So, there's some ambiguities or different lenses you could look at it through, potentially.
Yes. And hold those questions, and we'll talk about them pretty shortly. I don't know whether we'll get to it next week, but certainly the week following. Okay, this may be a good place for us to break. I don't see any point in trying to start up the next section, so we'll just quit right here. But we thank you for your attention, and we will see you next week. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Oh. Oh, wow. Oh, that is cool. Oh, man. And you provided all the artwork?
In the writing.
Wow. That is extraordinary.
Thank you.
Can I browse this for a little bit? Okay. I'll bring it back to you next Sunday. All right. That would be cool. Oh, yeah.